Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing parts 2 and 3 of The Ambassadors of Death, which was sent to me recently by one of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney. I had been wanting to rewatch this, so I really appreciate Colin sending it to me. We'll talk about part 2 first, and then we'll talk about part 3. And of course, obviously, after part 1, there is a noticeable dip in the picture quality, as episode 1 is, of course, an original surviving master and looks good, whereas episodes 2 through 7 have been were black and white prints recovered, which were recolorized in various ways, and it looks rough, especially since this was from the DVD range over a decade ago. I forget what year Ambassadors released, the early 2010s, I believe, 2010, 2012, somewhere up in there. And the restoration looks rough, especially with skin tones. Sometimes skin tones in some shots look like they're more colorized than others, and you can see patches of black and white in spots, like little patches of it, and where other patches are colored, and sometimes the coloring's not consistent throughout. And sometimes in scenes, I especially notice it on the controller, but with a lot of characters, it pulses and moves. Like you can see the color moving in the faces and swirling like it's dancing. You just see it dancing on their face like it's throbbing and pulsing a little. You notice it on clothes to some extent. You notice it on clothes to some extent, but you especially notice it on the sky. And there is some location work in this, and the sky looks a really off blue in some shots, gray in one or two shots, and then sometimes there's just little dots of color. Mind of Evil also has this problem, dots of color in the background. So the video quality is a little rough. Plus, I've noticed in some of the film work, there's some juddering sometimes when people move. It's a little weird how they move. It looks a little odd with the movement at times. I don't know if there's anything that they can do for that or not. But it's definitely a step down from episode 1. It's a perfect example of looking at what an episode can look like when you have its original master and what it can look like when you're having to work from other sources like they're having to do here. And it's a perfect reminder of just how much work Season 7 needs to get it up to snuff for its Blu-ray release. Now, I'm sure it'll look way better when it comes out on Blu-ray because technology has advanced a lot since this release. As for the story itself, it's fine. It's advancing along. The doctor's cracking the code. He's trying to figure out why the one scientist betrayed them. He knows there's got to be somebody else feeding them information because the bad guys seem to be a step ahead of them the whole time. I love the cast in general. The cast is very good, but I especially love John as the doctor here. I'm really liking the Brigadier. I usually like the Brigadier. Every now and then he gets a story where he's a little over the top, but he's really good here. Very military Brigadier. Liz is good. She wasn't in this episode a lot, but she was good when she was in it. I did enjoy the scene when they had the capsule stolen from them. It seemed a little too easy. Like you figured you'd have more unit soldiers there guarding it. But it was fine. And again, you notice the people taking the capsule aren't trying to hurt the unit people, just incapacitate them to where they can steal the capsule. So the bad guys do seem to be going out of their way not to hurt anyone. So they're, like I mentioned in the review for part 1, they're probably, the bad guys that think they're the good guys. Bad guys who have good intentions. They see themselves as the good guys. So I like the fact they're going that out of their way to try to avoid hurting anyone. And then, of course, the doctor gets the capsule back, but I love how he pretends just to have the car in the road. Well, I'm trying. I need some help. Just the way he plays that, I love it. And then he cuts on the force field. Only the third doctor would have a force field like that. He just flips the switch on Betsy and they're stuck to the car. That's such a third doctor move, using a gadget like that. I love that. And taking the capsule back. I did enjoy that. The cliffhanger was a bit abrupt. I did like the doctor realizing something was wrong when he's like, what's the capital of Australia? How many beings make 5? And when he realizes the astronaut on the other end that something is very wrong, he's like, all right, cut it open. It just cuts right there to credits. It's like, right, cut it open. Credits. It's a little jarring. It's not a bad cliffhanger. It's just jarring. It's just kind of, oh, credits. Caught me a little off guard, even though I knew it was about time for it. I was like, okay. I had forgotten that's where the credits were. Excuse me. But yeah, it moved the story along just fine. Like I said, I'm watching this several days after the first one, which is kind of nice. I'll probably end up watching the third one right after, and I'm just going to combine those reviews here. But I definitely liked part 2, and kind of spacing these out, considering these were originally watched one episode a week, might help with it. Like, I'll just watch part 3 tonight, and then I'll be at work a lot tomorrow, so I'll probably watch part 4 Monday. I think spacing it out might make me appreciate it more, because my biggest complaint about Ambassadors is just that it drags at 7 parts. So maybe spacing it out will help me appreciate that a little more. So, in just a second, we'll talk about part 3. Let's talk about part 3. A lot happens in part 3, actually. If you look at where you are at the end of part 2 and part 3, a lot went on. The Doctor has realized there are aliens in the astronaut suits, and it's not actually the astronauts. It's neat because it kind of feeds you that info in breadcrumbs, like, well, there's enough radiation, you know, they're emitting so much radiation a human would be dead. They need radiation. You know, they're absorbing it. They need more of it, not less. Why? So before finally dropping the bombshell that I know where your astronauts are. Where? Still up there. No, you saw suits. They're not human. I like that. I'm loving how John is playing this part. This kind of, he's figuring everything out a couple steps before everybody else. I loved when he realized something was up with Sir Styles, when they're sitting there talking to Sir Styles, and we know the third Doctor doesn't like authority figures much. And he's like, nope, we're here to demand answers from you. And when the Sir Styles gives him his answer, and we find out the other guy who's one of the bad guys is actually a general, who also an astronaut himself, Liz recognized him. You went up in Mars 6. Yes, I did. And the explanation they give, the Doctor's like, situation of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing. He's like, well, I hope this has satisfied you, Doctor. And he's like, it most certainly has not. I want to see those astronauts. I love how John's playing that. I enjoyed that. And then finding out you have this other faction, which I actually don't think is another faction, if I remember. I've only seen the story once or twice before. But, you know, what looks appear to be another faction that's stolen the aliens away and doesn't have quite as many qualms with killing people. I like the fact he lets the two guys ride in the back, knowing the radiation will kill them, just to get them out of the way. It's like, yeah, you got guns. Y'all will be fine back there. And the next time we see him, he's dragging the bodies out to be found. You know, using them as scapegoats. Clever. The guy has no morals. And then this is the first time we meet the Doctor who's watching over the scientist. He very much doesn't look like he wants to be there. So that's pretty interesting, meeting him. I know he's in more of the story. The ending, another abrupt cliffhanger. Now, the whole scene with Liz running away, of course, I remembered immediately that the message from the Brigadier was false. And I think even the first time I watched it, I was highly suspicious. Telegram from the Brigadier? Sounds like a trap, especially since we just had a scene of the guy looking at a picture going, I may have to take care of them. The little chase scene when they're in the car is all right. I mean, the quality of the episode still looks rough. Again, the visuals look very rough in this story. It's very apparent during the chase scene. The location work, it seems to hit harder. The studio work still looks rough, but not as rough as the location stuff does. There's still some weird jarring sometimes with fast movement. The sky, again, looks all these little pixelated colors. You notice it on Liz's hat, too, Carolyn's hat. Instead of looking white, it has a lot of little rainbow-like dots all over it. And the scenes when she's turning back and her hair's kind of going everywhere in the wind, the color's just all over the place, because I guess they're trying to keep up with all the hair that's going everywhere. The music that's playing over the car chase is so 70s. It's so 70s. I feel like I'm kind of watching a James Bond movie for a second, like an old James Bond movie. It's very much 70s. And then that actual cliffhanger is, I gotta admit, she's doing a pretty good job trying to get away from him with those boots on for a little bit. And then when he catches her and she just flips over, that's another abrupt coat hanger. Coat hanger? Abrupt coat hanger? Is there such a thing as an abrupt coat hanger? There is now. Such an abrupt cliffhanger with her just flipping over and credits. I'm like, that's 2 in a row where I'm like... But yeah, oddly enough, for a story that tends to drag for me after watching parts 2 and watching part 3, I want to watch part 4. I'm sitting here going, do I want to watch part 4 tonight? Or do I want to just wait? Which, that's good if it has me that caught up to go, I want to watch the next one. It must be doing something right for a story that I tend to claim drags. So that's to its benefit, I guess. So that's pretty much my thoughts on part 3. A lot really happened in this episode. There was actually a lot of ground covered. I like that. Episode 3, good stuff. So I want to know what you think of episode 2 and 3 of Ambassadors of Death. So comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. Links to the Patreon are down below if you would like to support the channel. YouTube memberships are available. The P.O. box is down there if you would like to send anything to me to look at and review. And the link to my Amazon wish list is there as well. That's actually where Colin sent this to me from, which I really appreciate Colin sending it. I think the only thing I'm looking for right now, episode-wise, that I just know I'm looking for is a copy of the War Machines. I'd really like to see the War Machines again, and I don't own that one. As always, I want to give a shout-out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does mean a lot, and it is appreciated. Most importantly, thank you for watching.